This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Hello, Dreamers, and welcome to the next instalment of our DreamPod and Dreamcast Years crossover Years pod, where we spend an episode looking back at one particular year in the life of our favourite console. This time around, we'll be taking a look back at the year 2000, what life was like that year, as well as what was happening in the world of Dreamcast. We've got games galore to discuss and a quiz too, so let's get started, shall we? Joining me this time, as ever, are my cohorts from DCY. It's Mr. Rich Elsey and Mr. Steve Leyland. How are you both?
Hello, I'm not too bad, thank you.
Yes, hello. Very good.
Hello. It's weird because we've now recorded two crossover episodes with Dreamcast Junkyard and have yet to record our next Dreamcast Years podcast. I feel like this is just our thing now. We've just taken over Dreamcast Junkyard, right?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. We've planted the flag. That's it now.
Hostile takeover.
Yes, exactly. Just kidding. But from the Dreamcast Junkyard, let's continue. He is a frequent DreamPod co-host and recent DCY guest. It is Lewis Cox. How's it going?
Hello. Yes, I am looking forward to the episode as I was alive in the year 2000. I wasn't not born yet, like you guys all think, because I'm young and stuff. Yep.
I mean, yeah, you're not that young, right? You were born in the 90s, right?
Yeah, 92. I was 7 in the year 2000.
Jesus.
You're not old enough to forget your age. My goodness, Lewis. Just to point out as well, you've recently posted a great article to the Dreamcast Junkyard blog, and that is about D2 and a magazine article that featured the game and its digital actress. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I recommend everyone goes and reads it because it was a fun article to write. And D2 came out this year, didn't it? Although we're not going to talk about it, but yeah, great game.
Very good game, yeah. I mean, did it come out in the USA this year?
I believe so, yeah.
We can kind of mention it if we fancy it later, but I mean, we've mentioned it now. So there you go, D2 released this year. That's the first best Dreamcast game. Do go check out that article. It's really interesting. It's really cool that you imported that magazine and gave everybody a look at it. So thank you very much for that, Lewis. Mm-hmm. Very cool. And last but not least, it's someone who needs no introduction. But I'll give him one anyway. It's an introduction, that is. He is a confirmed Dreamcast fan with a rather exciting project coming very soon. It's the one and only Mike Phelan. How you doing?
Good evening, Andrew. I'm doing well. I just unlike Lewis, I wasn't 7 in 2000.
Very much not 7.
No. Sadly
Same.
not.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, you were a Dreamcast fan at the time, which is good. So you've kind of primed for this podcast, which is great. Yeah. And you do have a project coming very soon, which I'm sure we'll talk about at the end. But it's going well, I assume.
It is, yes. I have many projects going, but the project you were talking about, I hope is the same one. The new A to Z guide is doing very well, and in fact, Lewis has completed the back cover of it today, so it's looking really good.
Excellent. Yeah, fantastic. I was going to try and make a joke about what other projects you could be doing that would be funny, but my brain won't go there. For
World domination, Andrew.
World domination, yeah. Before I forget, I'm Andrew, and I straddle the line between these podcasts, the common denominator, if you will. Before I run down what was going on in the year 2000, I do have a very important question for all of you. Are you ready?
Yep.
Fire away.
Great. And the question is, Coca-Cola or Pepsi? Divisive topic quite often. Rich?
Easy.
Where do you sit?
Pepsi all the way.
Pepsi all the way?
Definitely.
Any particular type of Pepsi?
That one time I had vanilla Pepsi. I've never had it here. I had it in the US once. Otherwise, I'll drink vanilla Coke. I don't have any problems there. Otherwise, I usually will just drink Diet Pepsi.
Yeah, sensible.
Yeah.
Lewis, where do you sit on this?
The answer is Pepsi because it's just better, and the favourite would be Crystal Pepsi because I managed to get my hands on it when they released it a few years back, and I personally think it's actually better than normal Pepsi. Lucy got it me for my birthday from one of these American sweet sites, you know, those ones. She tasted it and was like, oh, it just tastes like Pepsi, but it's clear, it's a gimmick. Whereas there's something subtle about it that's just slightly better, and I can't explain it. But if they ever re-release it, it's great. Give it a try.
Could that taste difference be like a psychosomatic because you look so different that you
That's
feel
what
like
Lucy was saying. She's like, you know, you're just being an attention seeker. I'm like, no, it tastes different.
Steve, where do you sit on this topic?
So I don't really have a passionate opinion either way, but I will say that I drink Coke Zero the most frequently out of the two. So I guess my answer is Coke Zero.
Fair enough. Mike?
I think that's a responsible podcast, so I should say there are other brands of Coke available. Other cola, not Coke. Pepsi, because it's all I ever drink. Pepsi Max.
No advocates for Virgin Cola, seeing as it was the 2000s.
Wow.
I used to love Virgin Cola. It was great.
God,
Yeah.
I forgot that was even a thing.
I once made the mistake of having a discussion. I was like, oh, does anyone remember Virgin Cola? And I went, what did it taste like? And one guy just replied, cola.
Yeah.
That was the end of that conversation.
Yeah.
I really liked that. And they had the Pamela Anderson shaped bottle as well, right? And
That's
Oh my
right.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throwing it back.
yeah.
Got an honourable mention as well for RC Cola, which is considered by many to be like the white trash cola. It's actually only in the US, but I remember once I think Asda were selling it, and I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I saw
Good
that.
stuff.
I want to go full hipster and just say I recommend the organic cola, which you get in little glass bottles in supermarkets. It's very nice as well. Can't remember the brand of it, but it's very nice.
Is that like Fentimans or something?
Yeah, that's the
£3,
one, that's the
£4
one.
or something.
Wow.
Right, thanks.
They are. It is good. It's good stuff. Yeah, I would. I mean, Virgin Cola is a great shout, and I used to love that. But yeah, I'm a Pepsi guy through and through. And a few years ago, in like you were talking about American Sweet Shop, I found like an original Pepsi. Like at some point, they would re-release the original American Pepsi, like with the original can design and everything, and of course the original sugar content. I had the most incredible sugar high after drinking that, and then crashed while still walking around town. It was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. Cherry Pepsi Max is where it's at the moment, I think, for me. But
I
interesting.
feel weird that I'm the only one that picks Coke. Feels weird.
You should feel weird.
Yeah.
The old Rishi Sunak's a fan of Coke.
Oh God, that interview. Was it the Mexican Coke, wasn't it? It was like,
Yeah. Mexican Coke is his favourite Coke.
yeah.
Interesting. Do you not think you should switch to Pepsi on the back of that?
I think I'm going to. Yeah, I think I'm going to.
I think his favourite Mexican Coke may not be the Coke we're talking about, to be honest with you.
Trust me. We all thought it was going to be, and the interview ended up being like just the dullest interview ever. I remember it was some schoolboy, wasn't it? It was interviewing him, and he just. Even the kid looked disappointed with the answer. Oh, okay, that's what you mean. Fair enough. Yeah.
I love where this podcast's going. All right, so let's take a look at what was happening in the world and in media during the year 2000. So the big thing was that we didn't die. The Y2K bug turned out to be nothing. But we did spend an awful lot of money on a big dome to celebrate the 2000th year of an arbitrary calendar. That turned out well, didn't it? But at least we're here, so that's fine. It's all good. Apparently, Vauxhall are mad important to British life, according to Wikipedia, who let me know that they launched the Agila City car in this year. We had a Vauxhall last time as well. I don't know why Wikipedia liked them so much, but there you go. So that's the thing. In the Sydney Olympics, Great Britain managed to win 10 gold medals, which is pretty good.
Wow.
And Who Wants to Be a Millionaire saw its first actual millionaire made this year with Judith Keppel, who won the quiz. So there you go.
Lucky Judith.
Yes, very true.
Rightly, already a millionaire, I think, when she won that.
Really? Wow.
So, yeah.
And a terrible egghead.
The eggheads. That's basically been replaced by the Chase now, right? Because I think some eggheads
so.
are on that. I think so.
It's still going.
Anyway.
Egghead's still going.
Never like CJ. CJ, don't trust that guy.
Murder the man. Murder the man, CJ.
He did. He did. Best I did that bit.
He murdered a man. Allegedly. Do we get away with it if we say allegedly? I think we do.
Allegedly, yeah, that's
Allegedly.
He allegedly pushed someone in a canal or something.
That's the one.
They never filmed it.
It's me.
This is basically the most controversial episode of the DreamPod we've ever done. Anyway.
An interesting side note, I did take on the Cinnamon from The Chase in a quiz once.
Ah, interesting.
I lost.
Oh.
Ah.
Well, you would. I mean, he's pretty knowledgeable, right?
If only they'd asked about Dreamcast, Mike.
I know.
Moving on, it was apparently the wettest year on record in the year 2000. I'm unsure if this is weather related. It didn't really mention, it just said wettest year. I assume it was rain. Also, DeviantArt launched in August of this year, who have a lot to answer for when it comes to Sonic. Michael Schumacher won his first championship with Ferrari in this year. And looking through births for the year 2000, I found that most were YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok stars, in inverted commas, which means I have no fucking idea who they are. However, Willow Smith, daughter of Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith, was born in the year 2000, so there you go. There was somebody that we kind of know, I guess.
Yep.
Although original Obi-Wan Kenobi actor Alec Guinness died on the August 5th of the year 2000, unfortunately.
At least you got to see Phantom Menace. That's an important thing.
I bet he wished he hadn't.
Sure he didn't.
This year saw the likes of CSI, Dark Angel, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Jackass air for the first time on TV in the States. While in the UK, we got the likes of Doctors, My Family, Jam, and Big Brother. Which is quite poignant because unfortunately Nikki Graham died today of Big Brother fame, which is very sad. Box office number ones in the UK this year included Toy Story 2, Pokemon the first movie, Gladiator, X-Men, and Nutty Professor 2: The Clumps, which we'll remember fondly, I'm sure.
that Pokemon movie was like the biggest deal for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you got cards free when you went as well. So when I went with my grandparents and my sister, they all just gave me their cards, and I got 4 cards, and I was well happy.
That's a very wholesome anecdote. Thank you, Lewis, for bringing this podcast back to normality.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I remember being well and truly rinsed at school for one of my friends hooked me up with a pirate VHS of a Pokemon the first movie, and someone found it in my bag, and I think I was 17 years old at the time, and they just looked at me like, "You watch this?" I was like, "Yeah," and just never lived that down. But I enjoyed it, so screw them.
It was a bit of a daft film. All the Pokemon cry Ash, like back to life. But it was very good marketing because there was like Pokemon no one had ever seen before in the movie. So it was like, you got to go see the movie to see the new Pokemon.
All right, well, music this year. We talk about singles in Dreamcast Years, but I'm going to talk about albums in our crossover. So the top 10 albums in the UK for 2000. Number 10 was the album Music by Madonna. Number 9 was The Greatest Hits by Whitney Houston. Number 8, Parachutes by Coldplay. Number 7, The Greatest Hits again, but this time by Texas. Number 6, Born to Do It by Craig David, who was big in this year until Lee Francis completely just ruined everything for Craig David, unfortunately. But it was funny. Number 5 was Play by Moby. Number 4, Westlife, Coast to Coast. Third biggest album of the year was the Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem. Number 2 was Sing When You're Winning by Robbie Williams. And number 1, surprise, surprise, because it's in the title, was One by Beatles. So there you go. That was the top 10 albums of the year 2000. Meh? Kind of meh. Yeah.
I mean, how much do you think the Dreamcast contributed towards the sales of Robbie's album that year? I like to think it was a bit of a 1-2 punch with the advertising, just
yeah.
I had that
true.
CD, and I swapped the jewel case for a transparent green one. And yeah, there's my anecdote about that album.
Why did you do that, Lewis?
Because it looked cool.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, it made the album cooler, perhaps.
Right. Okay.
Which is a tall order because it was already pretty cool.
Anyway, moving on. I think that's all we've got. Wasn't the world an interesting place in the year 2000? It was certainly an interesting time to be a gamer, especially if you'd bought a Dreamcast. And this was the first and only year where the Dreamcast was a fully supported console in the West, as it launched near the end of 1999 and was discontinued by April of 2001. So you could call this the golden year for the console. I mean, that's right. That's true, right? The year 2000 was the Dreamcast golden year.
I guess so, yeah.
Definitely.
In many ways. We saw online gaming for the very first time over in the West, which was pretty damn cool. Anybody remember that coming to pass?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think did I actually play any online games at the time on the Dreamcast? I don't think I did. I think I was limited purely to browsing online. Maybe did a bit of Toy Racer, but otherwise I never really dabbled with it until a little bit later with I think Quake Arena. I think.
Mike, did you get Choo Choo Rocket when that came out? Because that was like the first game, right, to play online.
Possibly, yeah. I didn't play online on Dreamcast until 2 years ago. No, I didn't play Dreamcast online. Just played on the PC online.
I think I played Choo Choo Rocket online. Do you remember playing that, Steve? I'm pretty sure we played that together.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, that was a cool game, and it was cool that we played it online on a console.
Freaking weird game.
It was a weird game. Yeah,
online.
Phantasy Star Online is the one that we played. When was that? That's my main standout memory of playing online on the Dreamcast.
I think that was 2001, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
But that's that's an excellent game, and people still play it to this day, in fact, which is pretty awesome. Lewis, I know you obviously came to the Dreamcast later. Have you ever played it online?
I haven't. No. I was actually listening back to the episode that Tom did. Where they talk to the creator of the Dream Pie, and it all sounds relatively easy to set up. Surprisingly, I thought it was like some, wizardry. So I might give it a try at some point for sure.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience back in the day because it was dial up. We didn't get the broadband adapter over here, and of course in the year 2000 I don't think it even existed. Being able to play online at all was fantastic, but it was just, I think everybody has this experience, like people who were kind of in their mid to late teens in the year 2000 just have the overriding memory of anything you do online would be cut short by your mum using the phone. And that was true with the Dreamcast. Like I'd be in the middle of playing a Dreamcast game and my mum would like pick up the phone to call her mum and then everything would stop. And I'd be like, what? Like, what's happening? That was a mad thing to think about that actually happened. Like I can't even imagine that being a thing now. It's just so
somebody
weird.
Invented the filter and then life changed forever. It's great.
True. Yeah, very true.
Well, so when we were playing Choo Choo Rocket then, was your mum paying the bill for that then, just for every minute that we played it?
Yeah, so you just paid for the phone call, right? So you didn't pay an ISP, you just paid for the phone call that you made, as far as I remember. So yeah, that is true, but there was no ISP charge to pay, which the Americans had to do, which was something like $20-$30 a month or something on top of the phone charge. So it wasn't terrible.
I think that the Dreamcast probably did online gaming better than, even its biggest rival, the PS2, because, the PS2 was kind of a myth when it came to playing online. You had to buy some like big hard drive or something that you put in the back, and it was just a bit awkward. I knew no one who played online with the PS2, but people I know have played the Dreamcast online back in the day because it was just so easy. And I think we didn't get that again until perhaps like the original Xbox, which was another console that fresh out of the box, was easy to get online, I suppose. So yeah, I think the Dreamcast was better in that regard until the Xbox came along.
Yeah,
very true. Speaking of the PS2, that did come onto the scene in the year 2000. Which was a big deal for the Dreamcast. So that came onto the scene, and as a result, we saw I think it was the first price drop for the console. So the Dreamcast came down to £150 in response to the PS2 coming onto the market. So that happened, and also, of course, the PS2 had a DVD drive, so we started to see package deals for things. So the one that I've seen here that I've been looking at was packaging a Dreamcast alongside a DVD player, Choo Choo Rocket, and DVD vouchers for £299, which was the same price as the PS2, which is quite interesting.
Gosh.
DVD vouchers.
DVD vouchers. Yeah.
What would you have got with those vouchers? I mean,
what was out in the
2000.
2000? I think my very first DVD was I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and I think that was around that time.
Mine was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and one of the Peter Kay stand-ups. That was it. I bought those on the same day.
My first 2 DVDs was Finding Nemo, a pirate copy, and the Bionicle movie, pirate copy. Both pirate copies, yeah.
Amazing. Mike, can you remember your first DVD since that's what we're on?
I can, yeah. The first DVD was a Tombstone, one of the old cardboard DVD boxes. Which
those Warner Brothers ones are awful. Hated those cases.
Awful boxes.
Yep.
Awesome. Steve?
Shrek.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, at least I didn't have to change it for a green cover.
True. To be honest, the big thing about this year was the games. Like, it was just a huge year for games for the Dreamcast. It's like some of the most iconic games came out in this year. And that's what we're going to move on to, I guess, now. So, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So this time, because we ran a bit long last time, because we all had a lot to say about all the games we brought in. So each person is going to talk about one particular game, and then we're going to kind of chat about a smaller honourable mention afterwards. And I'm going to start with Lewis. And so, Lewis, what is the main game that you want to chat about?
So I think that this game was like the big event for the Dreamcast, I'd argue, in the year 2000, and that is Shenmue. This was the game that was going to show you what the Dreamcast was made of, and I guess in some ways it did. The big expensive game. I remember owning a Guinness Book of World Records. There was a record that Shenmue was the most expensive game ever developed. I know that there's this like a fact, I'm not sure how true it is, that in order for it to make a profit, every person who owned a Dreamcast would have had to have bought 2 copies.
Wow.
So you can tell kind of, Sega were kind of going in maybe the wrong direction. But I came to this game a lot later. My friend did have the game. He often talked about it. And he used to call it Shamui because his family was Scottish. But I do remember he'd tell me loads of stuff about it, like how cool it was. And I think I remember very vaguely I visited his house, and when I got there, he was playing it. And then I probably was like, I want to play Quake 3 Arena, or I want to play Power Stone. So I think he turned it off pretty quickly. And then I played it for the first time in 2011 when I was going through like my Dreamcast rediscovery phase. And this is obviously a time when we had games that came after Shenmue and built on everything Shenmue had brought to gaming. We'd had like the big Grand Theft Auto games. We had Oblivion. Don't know if we probably had Skyrim at this point. I can't exactly remember. Yeah, but the thing is that despite all that, when I played this game for the first time, it still absolutely floored me. I played it first on an emulator, and then eventually bought it for the Dreamcast and sort of played it again, started again, and finished it on the Dreamcast. And I'll just never forget that first moment in the game where you walk out of Rio's house and there's this like eerie music playing as you walk through the neighborhood, and you're just walking along, you're talking to people, you can knock on doors, and I don't know, there was just something quite magical about it. We can't talk about Shenmue without talking about kind of like this eternal debate it gets embroiled in. It's a very Marmite game, and a lot of the time it kind of gets, for me, I feel like it kind of gets put to the side as, it was a good technological achievement for the time. But I don't know, I don't agree with that. I feel like people look at it in the same way you might like a Victorian car, like it's a technical stepping stone, but I'm not going to drive that. I'm going to drive the new car. In this case, it's like there's better, newer games, but I don't know, I think there's something quite special about this game. I could name many things, the story, the music, just the immersion of it, and obviously a lot of the time the poorly aged elements of it get sort of used against it. So like the janky voice acting, the whole memes about looking for sailors, but I don't know, that kind of is kind of endearing in a way. and obviously the forklift. But so I kind of had to think about this because, like I say, it's a Marmite as fuck game. You want to play a better open world game than this. And so I tried to think, like, why is it that I love this game so much, despite there being supposedly better games? And for me, I feel like the answer to that is escapism. And I feel like this game is a perfect game in regards to that, to escape into. It totally scoops me up and fully immerses me in this other world. And I especially really like real world settings in games, especially like Japan, which is a place that I've luckily been able to go to, but it's such a brilliant, like, amazing otherworld experience to go to this country. And I love the way Shenmue presents like this sort of suburban area, as opposed to somewhere like Tokyo. It's just this normal everyday area in Japan. People going about their everyday business and, the flow of life. And you've got like the day and night cycle. You can go in so many of the buildings that even modern open world games would just sort of have as like set dressing in this game, that you can go in them, and I just love that you can familiarize yourself with all the locals and grow attached to characters like Ine-san, Goro, Nozomi. And yeah, it's just a magical game. It does have its flaws. I think one of the big glaring ones is kind of the lack of like a time skip mechanic. I think the worst example of this is when you're told to come back to the tattoo parlor the next day, and if you've played all the arcade machines and opened all the capsule toys, and that bit's obviously not as exciting as it was when you first played it, there's been times when I've played this game because I've literally just put my controller on the floor and just like watched YouTube until I'm able to actually go and skip the day. And it's a brilliant game, and obviously it's one that did a lot, but I still think it's worth playing now, especially in my opinion Shenmue 2, which I think a lot of the things people complain about with Shenmue 1, Shenmue 2 fixes. The time skip mechanic, the world is more expansive. It's not just this one area, well, two areas that you go around constantly. You're roaming all over the place in Shenmue 2. And yeah, it's just a magical game. But I do understand that it has its flaws. And I'm not going to jump down anyone's throats who doesn't like it, because...
Damn it. That's what I was hoping for. But it's interesting as well. I think that a lot of people say that the appeal of Shenmue is really only for people who played it at the time because it was very of its time, and that because of all the stuff that came afterwards, people who play it now perhaps won't appreciate it more. So it's interesting to know that you played it in 2011, a good 10, 11 years after it came out, and still really enjoyed it for what it was. So that's quite interesting to know. I mean, it's only right that I come straight on to Steve after that gushing praise for Shenmue.
Well, there's no accounting for taste, I suppose. No. Look, if people listen to the Dreamcast Years, they'll know that we have fun over there at DTY about Shenmue, but it's mostly for fun. I don't abhor this game. I don't have a passionate hatred for this game. But so I won't labour it. I don't think. I think a lot of the things that are described as being dated, I think, felt bad at the time. People made fun of the sailors thing and the voice acting at the time. People thought that it was a bit time wasty at the time as well. So I'm not quite sure that all of that is down to it having aged. I think it was unique in a lot of ways at the time, including the ways in which it was bad. But I also share a lot of the same affection for this game as well. It does feel super authentic, and it does feel like you're going on a little holiday to a small Japanese town in a way that you haven't done in any other game before or since, really. And that is really cool. And the real-time elements, before they start to get on your nerves, are really cool and really well done. And I always come back to this feeling of, you're out investigating your investigation in the town, and then it starts to get a little bit dim, and the lights start to come on, like the street lights, and the shop shutters come down, and you see drunk people stumbling around the street, and it starts to feel a bit unsafe. It's a really cool feeling. It was really unique, and I still think back very fondly about that. overall, I'm not a Shenmue fan, but I'm not gonna sit here and kick down Lewis's very nicely articulated description of the game.
Honestly, I don't know why I brought you two. I thought we were going to have like a big showdown about Shenmue. Too nice.
Sorry.
How dare you, Mike? Come on,
Yes.
thoughts of Shenmue?
I love Shenmue. Shenmue's my favourite game on Dreamcast. I think Lewis sums up pretty nicely, really. It's. I think people complain about the game as being an open world game, which is an open world, but that's the appeal of it, isn't it? It's a closed open world game. It's a very intimate and cozy game to play. I played it a couple of years after it came out. I bought it when it came out, but I didn't play it for a couple of years for whatever reason. And I mean, at the time, it was just I wouldn't say a revelation. It wasn't that much of a change in games, but it was definitely something on the console that I hadn't played before. And just a really, it makes you feel like you care about the characters. It makes you really invested in the story and the setting, which I think big mini games manage to do. And it really does envelop you in the world, which is, I think, testament to how good the game is. I know Lewis said Shenmue 2 as being the better game in terms of solving some of the problems. It does, but I think it loses some of its charm as well. The first one is a really unique experience for me, in that it is still very much that sort of opening drawers to see what clothes you've got in the drawers. It's a ridiculous concept, and trying to sell someone, as I have done many times over the years, of how good Shenmue is by explaining things like that, you look a bit insane, because it doesn't sound fun and probably isn't fun, but it's just so unique. And I think Lewis is spot on.
It's a hard game to sell to people. I've had many friends who I think they like the idea of Shenmue as this like legendary game. You know, it kind of almost at this point, because of the internet, has like grown this like cult sort of thing around it. Yeah, I remember I've like pitched it to people, and they like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. You know, I'm into story games. I like David Cage or other things like that. You know, let's not get started on David Cage. I've been listening.
Not this time.
I was listening to the Fahrenheit discussion you had on one of your other podcasts. Very funny. But yeah, and they like this idea of this is like the father of all open world story driven games, and then they play it, and it sort of does have its lulls. The game. I remember a colleague at work who really loves Yakuza. He started playing it, and he's just like, yeah, I really like it. And I was like, oh my god, like someone likes Shenmue that I've recommended it to. It was like a revelation. So like I do appreciate that it's definitely not a lot of people's cup of tea. It's a very odd game. It's a very odd thing that so many people who like it absolutely love it, and then it's like the complete opposite for others. Just as a final note from me, I really recommend the making of documentary that someone uploaded onto YouTube. It's really cool. And I think even if you're not a fan of the game, watch that just to sort of appreciate at least what Yu Suzuki was going for. I think there's this one bit where he's like in this room with a, I think it's like a whiteboard with like all these post-its, and it's just like each character, he's mapped out their entire daily schedule of like each of these characters in this town. And I remember just like seeing it and being like, whoa, like this is incredible. It's also quite funny because you get to see Yu Suzuki like getting angry at one of his employees, which I think is really funny because obviously nowadays he's like this sort of like gentle old bloke, and like it's so weird seeing him like sort of get frustrated at someone. So it's worth a watch. I definitely recommend watching that.
Cool. So Rich, you have a storied history with this, and I mean, it would be remiss of us not to mention the fact that you got your forklift license as a result of Shenmue. I mean, that's you like the game that much, right?
Yeah, in 2002, I just applied all my knowledge. Went through the health and safety training videos and just thought, what would Rio do? And so he had the dock, I had a garden center, but he definitely helped me with my forklift license. But yeah, I mean, what more can be said about Shenmue really, other than what's already been said? For me, other than being like, that was the big game of the year and it was the game I got for that Christmas, I think, again, what was so special about the Dreamcast, it was that time in my life where for the first time I essentially had like a kind of emotional attachment to a console, and I was very invested in the actual success of the console in the market, and Shenmue was very much that game that you championed and you wanted to tell your mates about. You kind of almost like wanted to kind of almost be a brand ambassador at the time and tell your mates about it and get them to be wowed by it, and hopefully it was going to sell a few more consoles. And yeah, playing Shenmue on Christmas Day that year was everything I wanted it to be. I mean, I was following the development of it, everything to do with just the voice acting, seeing them using like a proper like Philharmonic orchestra. I got into the actual intricate details of the whole production of the game. It was the first time I felt that invested in a title, instead of it just being this thing that comes out and you buy it because it looks good on the back. And yeah, it just was an incredible game to play on day one. I think we've kind of mentioned this before, but one of the things I liked about it was it did make you feel like a tourist. It felt like you kind of went on like a little bit of a holiday to Japan, and you kind of got to stay in a small town somewhere and roam into the local, shopping area or where there's some other people living. It just had that kind of, if you were playing it daily, it had that kind of really understated kind of routine to it. You didn't go from level to level. You walked from the house down the slope into town. That's what I loved about it. There was a real magic about it. It didn't feel like a typical game. I mean, yeah, we had some kind of open world gaming at that point, but nothing on that level. And it just was incredible. And it still is now. I still think there are some things that in a way hold up. I still think it's a visually quite impressive game. Some of the NPCs' faces are completely terrifying. And the voice acting as well, in some respects, leaves a lot to be desired. But some of the production elements in it, some of the voice acting, the score is just gorgeous. It's still all in all my favorite video game like soundtrack or score of all time. It's just beautiful. I just really, it's a special game, and it is like the Dreamcast's Ocarina. It's Final Fantasy VII. It's the game the console hangs its hat on. It's the one that you just think of when you think of the Dreamcast. And it did lead me to, in more recent years, dabbling with the Yakuza series. And I think I kind of went into that series for a little while with this misconception that it was like Yakuza was very much a spiritual successor to Shenmue. It is quite different, but at the same time, what I like about it is that I feel like that series kind of has fulfilled what they had planned for Shenmue, because they were talking about 8 or 9 games, and obviously we've had 3, and I don't know if we'll have any more. But seeing what they did with Yakuza years later, I'll always think of Shenmue when I play that series. Series now has dominated the last year of my life, and I owe that to Shenmue deep down. I really, really do.
Well, after all the gushing praise and some not so gushing praise, what I forgot to mention before we started talking about the games is that we're doing the Dreamcast Years thing, which is where we do have to kind of rate the games that we're talking about, which means that we need to decide whether they were game changers, whether they were just games, or whether they were shit. So I'm going to come around to each of you and going to ask you basically where you would put Shenmue. And Steve, where would you put Shenmue?
Can I get a bit of credit for patiently listening to everyone and just biting my tongue completely? Can I just get a bit of credit?
Yeah.
Well, you did rant on at me for an hour the other day on the phone about how bad Shenmue was, but kidding. Go on.
It's a game. It's a game. I'm not going to say it's shit because it's not shit. But yeah, to me, it's a game. It should be credited with some things in doing some things first. But yeah, game.
Sure. Okay. Mike, what about yourself?
Game changer. 100%. Yeah. I think it's inspired at least 3 of us on this podcast quite heavily. So it's game changer.
Yeah. Lewis?
Yeah, it's a very comfortable game changer, and yeah, just a magical game, honestly. Yep.
Cool. Rich, do you agree with Mike and Lewis?
Yeah, game changer, definitely. I think in many ways, for better and worse. I think along with the Dreamcast itself, I think this game probably owes a lot to Sega's fortunes like a year down the line. I think that kind of was part of what led to what we know of Sega today. So in terms of industry, I think it's a very, very impactful game. And yeah, one word, Yakuza. That's what I think of. So game changer, definitely.
Yep.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I agree. Game changer for sure. I mean, even if you take out the frustrations with the game, what it did in terms of open world gaming, the things that it put in place that hadn't been seen before, and what most games have as standard now. Shenmue was kind of one of the first, or the first game to do that, so it's been very influential going forward. So it needs to be a game changer just for that reason. Part of me would take away some points for the fact that it made QTE standard in lots of games, because that's not
they
so
were
great.
cool in Shenmue, though.
Love hate.
They were good in Shenmue to a degree. Yeah.
Because Ryo's so passive about it. That's what I liked about those. It felt right that was a quick time event, because he just kind of, nonchalantly batted guys away.
Yeah.
That's true. I think other games have very much misused the concept.
Yes.
So, but there we go. Yeah, game changer. Easily a game changer.
Just to add, as a final addendum about the QuickTime events, there is nothing worse than there's one QuickTime event where someone kicks a football, and if you fail it, it hits a little girl in the face. It's like the most distraught I've ever been in a game. Just like, oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Brilliant. So we are going to do honourable mentions as well. We're not going to rate those just because it would take too long. But Lewis, what's your honourable mention for this episode?
Yeah, so this game, I mean, to be fair, I was kind of stuck putting Shenmue as the main game because obviously that's the one we really, got to discuss in the year 2000 for Dreamcast. But my honourable mention is Power Stone 2. And part of the reason it is an honourable mention is that I've kind of spoken about it, well, in some cases written about it to death in the last few months, written about it in your upcoming Dreamcast Year 2 book, Andrew, which I submitted to you a little while ago. And then I also took part in the book club stream that we do on the Dreamcast Junkyard YouTube channel. And we did one about Power Stone 1 and 2, which you can actually find if you search for it. And it was supposed to be a discussion about Power Stone 1 and 2, half an hour for Power Stone 1, half an hour for Power Stone 2, but I feel like I kind of derailed the whole thing trying to defend Power Stone 2's honor, because like everyone in the chat was like, Power Stone 2 is crap, Power Stone 1 is the GOAT. So I just kind of did that for an hour, and Mike and Kev tried to hold their cool.
I mean, not to try and get you to do this again, but I mean, I feel like I now need to go around and figure out whether people prefer Power Stone 1 or 2. Mike said you're saying 1, right?
100%, yeah.
100%. Rich?
1, I guess. I've never been a big Power Stone fan, I'm afraid. I think I've only played 1. So
okay, fair enough. Steve?
I think overall 2, but if there's only 2 of you, playing 1 is also fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would agree with Mike. I think 1 is it's the epitome of Power Stone. It is condensed. It has the idea of that game down to a T. 2 is like a completely different game, which is fine.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy 2, but it is like a party game version of Power Stone rather than Power Stone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose I like it because I really enjoy kind of party games and getting everyone, 4 people together to play a game. And I suppose just to sort of explain dead briefly to people the difference is it focuses a lot on levels that move and change. So like 1 second, you like one level you're on top of an airship, and then it just gets destroyed, and you're falling through the sky. You know, got to grab an umbrella so you don't take damage as you hit the ground, and then you kind of finish off the fight in like a sort of an arena. You know, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of this movement featured in the game, and it kind of takes away the who can do the best combos and makes it more about where you are on the level, you know, picking up the best weapons, getting power stones. It kind of makes it more like something like Super Smash Brothers as opposed to like a traditional Capcom fighter. And yeah, but I that's the bit that people get a bit kind of confuddled with, I suppose, like the chaotic and sort of fast pace of it. It's a little bit kind of jarring, especially if you're a big fan of the first one. If you've picked this one up for the first time, I'm sure people back in 2000 were a little like, oh my god, like what is this? But I kind of like that. I think the best thing I can compare it to is like, I really like basketball because of how fast paced it is, but like people I know are like, oh my god, like I hate how fast it is. It's just like you can't even, you know, keep up with it. And I kind of like that that element of it's fast and things can switch up any second, and that's kind of like in Power Stone 2. So yeah, it's like the basketball to Power Stone 1's football or cricket or something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a method behind the madness of Power Stone 2, and if you play it with 4 people, you're going to have an amazing time, and can't wait for the pandemic to be over and do that some more. And that is my thing about Power Stone 2. There you go.
There we go. Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, to be fair, I think Power Stone 2 is the game that I cracked out the most with groups of friends because it was so much fun to play with a group. That and Samba de Amigo, because that was always fun to watch people play. But yeah, Power Stone 2 is pretty damn good. There we go. All right, moving on. I'm going to come to Steve next. Hello, Steve.
Hello.
What's the main game that you want to discuss?
So the main game I want to discuss, I don't have nearly as much to say about this game as Lewis did about Shenmue. But the main game I'm going to discuss is Dead or Alive 2.
So I got this the wrong way around, and I thought you were going to say this is your honourable mention, but actually there is a lot to say about this game, right? It's a very interesting game.
It is a very interesting game. It's one of those Dreamcast games that feels like an arcade game, which is, you know, a massive tick in the box. I'm not really a fighting game person. I will wax lyrical about Soul Calibur all day long because I love it, even though I'm not a fighting game person. And Dead or Alive 2 also really appeals to the not fighting game person in me. It's really fun. It's really accessible. It's really fast. It looks really, really nice. Not quite as good as Soul Calibur. But it's just really good fun. And the fighting, so I'm not a Virtua Fighter person either. I think that fighting feels too like stiff and close range. And Dead or Alive 2, I'm to understand at least, is like has kind of a similar kind of fighting style as Virtua Fighter does, but to me it feels much better because it feels snappier and it feels like I can actually land hits without being a millimeter away from the other person. And the thing that makes it so fun is it's kind of got that Soul Calibur feel where you can smash buttons and cool things happen on the screen. And it's got like a reversal thing where I can't remember if you hold the block button or you tap the block button at exactly the right time as somebody's trying to hit you. You do like a reversal move, which just feels rad as hell because making the other person, you're reversing their move, which is awesome. A lot of the levels as well were really like kind of semi-interactive. Like you could hit guys against walls and the walls would explode, or there would be electricity on them. You could also kick people outside of the arena and they would land on like a lower arena, or they would smash through something and then you'd end up fighting somewhere else, which was really awesome. It was bonkers in the story department. The Dreamcast version was all Japanese as well, which somehow made it feel even more bonkers, like you were watching an anime that you could barely follow. Lots of colourful characters, including some ladies who were very lovingly rendered. The Dead or Alive series is kind of notorious for this, which is, in my view, kind of a shame, because people think of Dead or Alive and they think of that's the boobs game with the boobs in it. They made the boobs bounce realistically, or very unrealistically, really. They spent a lot of time on the boob engine. It's a shame because it undermines what is actually a really good game. It's the kind of game that like you didn't want your mum to see you play because of the boob physics. But god damn it, it's a legitimately good game. So that all that stuff was always kind of a little bit of a shame to me. But it's one of the games that I always think of when I think of the Dreamcast, and it's because I think you and I, Andrew, stayed up a ridiculous length of time just playing this game over and over and over again, and it just didn't get old until the wee hours of the morning, and then I went to sleep on your sofa at like 7 o'clock in the morning because that was when we decided to stop.
Yeah, it's a fun game, and all the characters are fun to play with. Like they're all different, and they all have like great moves, and they look great, and you can change their costumes. And like you said, the stages are fantastic because they're interactive, which like Power Stone 2, the stages there are kind of interactive as well, and there's a lot of fun to be had with that. It's just a lot of fun, and I'd completely forgotten that we'd stayed up all night playing this game. But yeah, I do. I mean, we did that for a fair few games, to be fair, but I do now recall us doing that for Dead or Alive 2, which is crazy. Mike, do you have any thoughts about this game in particular?
Yeah, it's a good game. I think it's very much, as has been said, I think it's a really accessible fighting game. I'm not a massive fighting fan in myself in terms of, I don't know every single combo for every single character in Street Fighter. But I do appreciate an accessible fighting game. Dead or Alive 2 is definitely that. Mm-hmm. And it's also a really attractive game. I mean, it's just a really attractive, good-looking game. It's one of those games where I was mainly a PC games player at the time, and it was one of those games which really caught the eye of PC gamers, like Shenmue, actually. In that, in fact, it blew everything else away in terms of visuals. So, yeah, really nice looking game. And the Dreamcast version, especially the Japanese version, the second Japanese version, is really, really high quality. So, yeah, really good game.
I'd forgotten that there was a different Japanese version. Yeah, that's what did they improve in that? I can't remember now.
I think it was mainly extra content, wasn't it? I don't think there was anything refined into the game's engine as such. But it was the same as, was it Dead or Alive 2 Ultimate? Was it the same as content as that version? I'm not sure.
I'd imagine that'd be the case, yeah. Yeah. Interesting. One thing to point out is that you could change your age in the menu, and the higher your age, the more the boobs bounce.
Yeah.
For goodness
more,
sake.
I thought it'd be less, but that's fine.
So if you're 1 year older, then the boobs should bounce more, right? No?
Well, I guess I mean more they just probably kind of swing as you get older, but...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think you were saying your age rather than the age of the...
Not my age, I mean, yeah. I'm not in the best shape because of lockdown, but I'm not that bad.
Come on then, Rich. Have you played this game?
Oh, yeah, love it. Very much like Steve, I never was, and still, to me, degrees, I'm not a fighting game person, and I was very much Soul Calibur at the time. I remember playing this on a demo disc and thinking it was kind of neat. But in recent years, since last year, I've been playing this quite a bit on GDMU, and I've kind of fallen in love with it. I still think Soul Calibur is, the GOAT, but yeah, Dead or Alive 2 is fantastic. It looks better, I think. It's one of the best looking games on the Dreamcast easily, and it still looks magnificent on a modern screen. I cannot believe how many, this game's from how many previous generations, and it looks fantastic. And yeah, like Steve said again, it plays snappy. It has that kind of appeal like Soul Calibur does, that it makes you feel that you're just really quite bloody good at fighting games, and you're just pulling off all these moves, and everything just flows and chains together nicely. You feel like a pro. Yeah, I love the interactive environments, going through like stained glass windows, dropping 50 feet, and then just carrying on fighting. It's an awesome fighting game. I think this and Soul Calibur are the only real fighting games I've ever really truly loved. They both bring kind of different things to the table, but yeah, this is a game I still feel like I want to spend more time with. I mean, yeah, I've played it the most that I ever have in 2020, but yeah, I need to spend more time in this game. But what I have played, I do enjoy greatly.
Very good. Lewis, is this a game that you enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird one, really, trying to sort of like, I was trying to rack my brains about this game because I recall playing it a lot at one point. It's almost like I can't remember anything that happened, but that's not because it was a bad game. It's just like, for some reason, my memory has like, it's just disappeared. You know, maybe when I learned something new, the memory of this like got pushed out. But yeah, it's similar to everyone else. Everyone said it really well. It's a very accessible fighting game. It's one that, you know, I've played with friends who equally don't know, you know, combos and all this, and we just have it. It's a great fun to play. You know, if you're not a fighting game aficionado, and it feels quite fluid as well and not stiff, so you can kind of just jump into it and hopefully win at some point. I echo as well, like the ridiculous story. I can't remember much of it. I just remember it being like super over the top and Japanese, and because I liked the game, I bought a figure of Kasumi because at the time, the thing is, like, people these days don't understand like gaming merchandise, and especially anime merchandise. There's kind of an anime look to a lot of the characters in this game. So I bought this Kasumi figure because I was like, oh, cool, that's Dead or Alive. Like, you couldn't find any of this stuff anywhere. Nowadays, like, you walk into HMV and it's just like all this stuff everywhere. And so I bought this figure, and it was like the only figure of like anything gaming I had, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. My mum, on the other hand, did not think this figure was cool. And my mum's recently been moving out of our the house I grew up in, and she's like, I hate that figure. And I'm like, you can just get rid of it, it's fine. So yeah, but just to add one thing that's not been mentioned, the tag battle mode in this game is excellent.
Of course.
I remember it's like you can have 4 people play it, and so you get in sort of 2 teams of 2. So much fun, amazing. Like, if you have 4 people and this game, play that mode. It's so much fun. Frantically, like, right, I'm gonna tag you in. All right, you know, I'm ready. You know, it's amazing. It's great. So, yeah, great game.
Yeah, it's a good catch. That I should have remembered that. But you can just tag your partner in like in real time, and they have a little animation where they jump in over the stage wall, and you just keep going. It's real fast. Yeah, no, it's really, really good fun, that mode.
It's very cool. I mean, I love Dead or Alive 2. I mean, as you said, Steve, we stayed up for ages playing it, but the good thing about the Dead or Alive series is then it continued on to Xbox, which was kind of like the spiritual successor to the Dreamcast. So Microsoft got Dead or Alive 3 as an exclusive, and then I think they got Dead or Alive 4 as an exclusive on the 360. So they just kind of carried that on, and they were still great games. And I think Dead or Alive 2 was the first time you realized this was going to be a very good series. And unfortunately, in recent years, they've kind of relied a lot on massive DLC purchases that cost lots and lots of money to get costumes. I mean, it's like £60 for a DLC pack for Dead or Alive 6 to get a bunch of costumes, which is as much as the game itself, sometimes more than the game itself. It is ridiculous. But
the gross objectification of women has only gotten worse, sadly, as that series has gone on, which is a real shame.
Really? I just imagined it probably mellowed. Like,
no.
Really,
you got like the beach ball games.
Yeah.
The thing is like, I remember playing this game, and I felt that all the characters were somewhat ridiculous. Like, the blokes in it are ridiculous. You know, they're all just like super muscly guys who, you know, one's in like a cowboy hat. Like, they're all ridiculous characters. And I think if it had just stuck with like, look at all these silly characters that are like beautiful, and then just stuck with that, and just been a fighting game. But it just kind of like, let's go into this like really weird, sleazy direction with the whole thing. And it kind of, yeah, like I wouldn't touch it nowadays. Like it's a bit gross, but it was cool on Dead or Alive 2 at least.
Yeah, I mean, they are still fun games. And for what it's worth, they do objectify the male characters, although I'm very convinced that's because of the issues they've had with objectifying the female ones. They're kind of just going, hey, look, we objectify the male characters now too, because you can get extremely skimpy swimwear for the male characters in 5 and 6, I think. All right, what are we thinking about this one then? Is this a game changer, Mike?
I don't think it's a game changer
to
me. I don't think it does enough to be a game changer like Soul Calibur. So a game for me.
Okay, fair enough. Rich, what about you?
Yeah, I still think it's very much a strong game. I think you reserve game changer to the likes of Soul Calibur, but I don't think, this is worthy of game changer.
Fair enough. Lewis?
See, I put game changer in my notes because I just felt like it's such a, I feel like it's quite iconic, even not necessarily with the Dreamcast. It's iconic. It's kind of almost lived more of a life than a lot of these other games that we're going to discuss today. But I think kind of hearing what everyone's said, I think I'm sort of moving more towards like very, very good game. Definitely, yeah. Not game changer though.
Cool. Very measured. Steve, what about yourself?
I think if I was to say game changer, it's pretty game changery, but I think that it might not be in the good ways. You know what I mean? Like it was the first game that really did the whole booby bouncy physicsy type thing. Let's maybe not recognize its game changing elements and just go for very strong game.
Very fair, and I think I would agree. So a game it is. There we go. And Steve, what's your honourable mention that you want to have a quick chat about?
My honourable mention is the other game that I think of when I think about Dreamcast, and that is Resident Evil Code Veronica. I mean, it was amazing, difficult to go back to. I try not to for that reason. I like to kind of keep it pure in my mind as being as amazing as it was at the time. But it's a Resident Evil game where they can break the perspective and move the camera, and things happen in 3D, and the backgrounds I thought looked just as good as the pre-rendered ones, but now they're in 3D. It was a next-gen Resident Evil, and it totally lived up to the promise of what that could be, and it was awesome. It still kept to the tank control style, the menu style and everything, but it was just in 3D now, which meant you could have awesome cutscenes. Legendary opening CG cutscene. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. And the part that I always remember and that I always bleat on about is where you go into like a barracks, like a canteen area in a barracks, and there's a very, very dirty table in the middle with zombies shambling around, and there's a light swinging overhead, and all the light and shadow and everything looked fucking incredible. And you can shoot 2 different zombies in 2 different directions with 2 machine guns, which, I mean, who doesn't love that?
It is a big Dreamcast game. It's like, a huge exclusive get for Sega, and the reason I bought a Dreamcast, as I often mention, I mean, I don't think anybody here would have particularly bad word to say about Code Veronica. Would I be right?
No, definitely not. I mean, I've never been a massive fan of the Resident Evil series, but I respect the series and I like what I played of Code Veronica. It's just never been my bag, I'm afraid.
Mike Lewis also like this game a fair bit.
Same, really.
Yeah.
Never been the biggest Resident Evil fan. I do like a bit of Resident Evil, but it's I think it plays well, does what it needs to do. So yeah, good game.
In regards to myself, as Andrew probably knows because I keep messaging him, in the last month or so, maybe 2 months, I've played the remakes of 1, 2, and 3. Played 2 both scenarios. So like this was going to be my next game to play because I've played it very briefly, and I remember it being good. But when I started it, I found it quite difficult with Resident Evil, and this is one of the gripes I had with the remake of 1 is that I'm running out of ammo, I'm running out of health, my character's walking around limping. I'm like, oh, this is so frustrating. I just want to solve the puzzles. Whereas now I've been playing them, like for example, the remake of 1, I like finished with like all this like these herbs and ammo just like stockpiled in the crate. So I've gotten the hang of the ins and outs of this game, so I'm like ready for Code Veronica. But the only reason I've not already given it a go after finishing the remake of 3 is that I thought I'd better finish 7 because 8 is coming out next month. So that's the only reason. But I will be playing this game as soon as I'm finished with number 7 or possibly 8, I guess. But yeah, it's also give us the modern remake of it over 4.
Yes.
Like, please, come on, like,
yes, please.
You know,
Yes,
4
please.
is a
Oh my
fairly
goodness.
competent game still as far as its controls. So yeah, give us the Code Veronica remake, please. Especially because, like, if you've played the Resident Evil 2 remake, the actress who plays Claire is like phenomenal, like amazing. And I just want to see her again in a remake for Code Veronica.
Yeah, and hopefully they can cast somebody good in the part of Steve instead of the actor that we got for that. So, but yeah, I mean, Code Veronica is fantastic, and it's been really nice to hear your journey with Resident Evil over the past month or so. When you excitedly text me, it's great.
I'd probably say the most I've experienced of it was actually watching your stream when the Dreamcast Year 2 got funded. That's like the most I've probably seen of the game, watching you play it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played it as well. I'd love to go back to it again. I mean, I've got like all of the mainline Resident Evil games on the PS4 now. Unfortunately, Code Veronica didn't get a boxed release; it's only download. So I've got that on the PSN. But yeah, it's one of the better old school Resident Evil games. I mean, they're all good, the old school Resident Evil games, but it was a nice, like Steve said, it's a next generation leap into graphically, at least, if not gameplay wise. And it's a shame they didn't kind of go down or keep going with the proper survival horror route and kind of went to more action orientated. I am glad with the remakes that they've done that they've kind of gone back to that. And 7, of course, is proper horror, not even survival horror. It's just like every type of horror film you've ever seen. But anyway, kind of going off point there. It's a great game, I think, is what I'm saying, and definitely want to play again soon too.
Hello, this is Lewis, recording this after the podcast was recorded to say I did play Code Veronica and it was very cool. The tank controls haven't aged that well, but were something I got used to, and also the character Steve is an insufferable little shit. Thank you. Back to the podcast.
All right, let's move on to Mike. And hello, Mike, what's the game that you want to discuss?
So it's a very difficult choice for me when you said to choose a game from 2000, because it's a game where at least half of my favourite games of all time are from, mostly PC, but Dreamcast games as well. So I wanted to pick a game which sort of melded my love of games and my love of other things, in this case punk rock. And the game I've chosen is Tony Hawk's 2, which I think possibly has the greatest soundtrack of any game ever. But it also has one of the finest and most refined gameplays of any game up to this point, anyway. And it's just a fantastic game. Tony Hawk's Skateboarding series, first game was great fun. Tony Hawk's 2 just made everything better. It looks good. Dreamcast port's best looking of the versions. The gameplay is spot on. Possibly the smoothest and most, I'm going to say refined again, but it's just a really enjoyable game to play. It plays really well. The levels are inspired, and the soundtrack is stupendous. One of the greatest soundtracks ever. The game was another one of the games where I had never played on Tony Hawk's 1 at that point. So I never really, my first exposure to the series was Tony Hawk's 2. And it's just, yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about Tony Hawk's 2 in terms of it didn't change a massive amount. It didn't bring anything massively new to the party, but it just did everything which its predecessor did much, much better. And I think the reviews at the time were amazing. I think it's still one of the highest rated games of all time. It's one of the few games I saw which had full marks on many different sources, and just really enjoyable and still enjoyable now. I mean, obviously we've had a remake come out since of the first 2 games, but I still go back to the Dreamcast version. I still play the Dreamcast version as my preferred option, simply because of the fact that it just runs so smoothly, plays so well, fantastic multiplayer options on it, create options as well, which at the time was revolutionary, I suppose, to an extent. Yeah, I think genuinely probably is the most fun game on Dreamcast, which is quite remarkable for me, from a year which had games like, some amazing games come out in the first couple of years of Dreamcast. This game still, to me, is the greatest.
Wow, that's a high honour to bestow upon it. Lewis, I know that you're a huge Tony Hawk fan. Would you call it the most fun game as well?
I think that gameplay wise, I think it really got into like the best when Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 came out. See, I kind of like the older, the later games slightly more, like Tony Hawk's Underground. But this is incredible. I remember my friend had it. Such a memorable game in the sense that I remember I went around my friend's house and he was playing this. Then I played it years later because I didn't have like a PS1 or a Dreamcast at the time. And I remember getting this. And I just knew when I entered that first level, the hangar, if you grind the rotor blades of the helicopter, it takes off and then it opens the secret area. Like that to me is like so ingrained in my brain, even though I hadn't played the game for so long. It's just like so memorable. Yeah. And like Mike has already touched on the soundtrack, like punk is one of my favorite genres ever. You've got like Millencolin, I don't know, I think that's how you pronounce it. Millencolin, yeah. Lagwagon, Fu Manchu is in here. And then not really punk, but you've got Rage Against the Machine, you've got Anthrax, Public Enemy, that kind of weird mashup that they did, which is pretty cool. I mean, Rage Against the Machine, that intro with Guerrilla Radio is like amazing. Like probably one of the coolest game intros, especially for like a sports game. Just everything about this game is so memorable. Even that weird hip hop music that's in the menu is great. There is a better version of it technically of this era, which is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X on the Xbox, but that was not released in Europe. But I did hack my Xbox and imported a copy and played it, and that is a very good version of it. Like it adds certain things, like in the hangar at the top there's like a control room and just like little details like that, and obviously it includes the first game. But yeah, it's the Dreamcast version still fantastic though, and except for maybe I'd probably still prefer the PS1 controller to play it with. But yeah, this is a fundamental game to many people's music tastes, people who fell in love with skateboarding. Like you can probably imagine, like most pro skaters these days probably picked up a skateboard because of a game like this. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's legendary. It's a pop culture icon. Amazing. Rich, are you a fan of this particular game?
Oh, massively. I mean, I don't think I can put it much better than what you've just heard, really. This just was one of those games that came at the right time. And yeah, I mean, I was very much on my new metal pop punk kick at the time. I was listening to stuff like CKY, watching Jackass. So that skate culture was really kicking in on the mainstream. And this game only popularized it more. And yeah, it just played fantastic. I mean, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 is still my favorite of this entire series, and this was actually the last physical game I bought for the Dreamcast. And I've been playing it recently on GDMU, and it's fantastic. I still go back to this more than the remakes, which for some reason I feel like I'm really fucking bad at. I don't know why. I am shockingly bad at that game, but
I agree.
Put me back on 2 on the Dreamcast, and I'm just I don't understand. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the controls. I can't put my finger on it. But
it's probably because like the physics in the newer game are more similar to like Pro Skater 4 or Underground. They're a lot faster and less sort of floaty. Like when you do a trick in 2, it's like gravity is less of an enemy, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. I'm bailing all the time. Whereas 2, kind of like Soul Calibur in a way, I just feel like I'm just great at it, even though I know deep down I'm probably not. Yeah, it is a legendary series. It like what was said before, it's a bit of a pop culture icon. It really popularized something, I think, at the time that in terms of a sport was, I guess I could say it was kind of niche, but yeah, it really brought it to a lot of people's attention. I think there were a lot of people that had never and still would never pick up a skateboard, but absolutely adored that game and adored the entire series. And you can't say much more than that, really. It's a fantastic game. It just plays perfect.
Steve, any thoughts on this one?
All of the above.
Very well put.
I can't hope to articulate anything more than anything that's already been said. But I agree with all of that.
Similar for me. I've never been. I mean, I've enjoyed this game, but it's never been top of my list of games that I play. But I certainly, I think I did own it back in the day, and a good number of hours into it, but I don't think I've ever touched it again since. And it sounds like I probably should. All right, well, we need to rate the game. Rich, where are you going to put this?
Definitely shit. No, game changer. massive game changer.
Wow. Okay, straight in there with the game changer. Interesting. Mike?
Yeah, game changer, 100%. That's what I picked it for. Massive game changer, not only in gaming. That's the big thing. I mean, I just want to put a very quick thing in the fact that there's a band on the soundtrack called Consumed, who were a band from Nottingham, a skate punk band from Nottingham, and it was a massive thing to the punk scene in the UK at the time to have a band on a game like this. So it was a huge cultural thing across the board. People who didn't play games played this game. People would have bought consoles to play this game. That's how big it was.
True, very true. Yeah, cultural phenomenon. Steve?
Yeah, it's a game changer, very comfortably.
Cool. Lewis?
Yeah, game changer.
Okay. I'd put it a game, but that's probably just because of my limited. I haven't played it as much as you guys have, and don't hold that much stead in it, I guess. But
were you a rollerblader, Andrew?
I was not. I can't hold my balance on anything like that. Fall over. No, but I mean, listening to all of you guys, I can completely see why it was a game changer. And I definitely need to give it a try. I mean, and by the sounds of it, I need to give the Dreamcast one a try, not the remake, right?
It depends how much. If you haven't had much experience with Tony Hawk series, I suppose the remake would make more sense.
I'll send you my physical copy because I don't need it anymore. There you go.
There you go. I was about to remind you, Mike, that we are on a Dreamcast podcast and we should always be selling the Dreamcast version.
Sorry, yeah. £60. Yeah.
Come on, Mike. Get with the program. Mike, your honourable mention, please.
Yeah, my honourable mention is actually my favourite game on Dreamcast. I know it's a bit weird that I've picked it as my honourable mention, but simply because of the fact I think it's less of a game changer. Is Le Mans 24 Hours. It's an absolutely fantastic racing game. It is a game which is very, very similar to the Toka Race Driver series on PS2 and Xbox. In terms of its handling, it's very simcade, or whatever you want to call it. It's just a really, really fun game. Again, I'm looking at games that are fun to play now, games that are enjoyable, and this is one of the greatest. Just a really, really fun, enjoyable game. Fantastic technical on Dreamcast. I mean, playing a long race and getting it down to the lights going down and then the stars appear in the sky, it just looks absolutely fantastic. Really fun game, really good, and still really playable now, which is I suppose testament to how good the game is.
That's true as well. It's a very fun game to play even now, and I just love the fact that it actually allowed you to play the entire 24 hours if you wanted to, which is a big deal. Yeah,
and not easy to do.
No, I keep saying I want to try it at some point. Yeah, I don't know, just glutton for punishment, perhaps. Maybe I'll do like a charity stream or something where I do the entire 24 hours. But I mean, Rich, you just talking about sending me a copy of Tony Hawk 2. You sent me a copy of Le Mans.
I did.
Because I think I got rid of mine years and years and years ago in my great purge when I was trying to pay for bills and sold a bunch of games that I really wish I hadn't, like Project Justice. And this is one of them, but I have it back now thanks to you. And you also love this game, right?
Yeah, no, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I've not played it as much as I kind of really feel like I should have, but very similar to what was said before. It does have that kind of Toka Race Driver feel. It felt very much, I can't put my finger on it. It felt very much like that kind of sim racer of its time. Yeah, I've never tried the 24-hour mode. I never will. I don't think I'll ever attempt that. No, I like it. It's not one of my favorite races on the Dreamcast. I don't know why. It did come around that real time of that real racing game renaissance, where we're getting all these like fantastic races on like the PlayStation, and it kind of sits nicely amongst those. But it was never my favorite, and I can't quite tell why. But no, I do like it. I do like it.
Okay. Lewis, Steve, have both of you played this one?
Me, no. I'm not really a racing game person, so not for me.
Fair. Lewis?
Yeah, I've not actually played this. Same as Steve. You know, I have played and enjoyed racing games, but I'm not the biggest racing game fan going. But I do know, obviously, that a lot of people in Dreamcast Years and Dreamcast Junkyard are big fans of this game. I know for sure that Brian is. Yep. I imagine Tom is as well. I looked this game up today, and apparently it got the Dreamcast version got incredibly good reviews at the time. So
it's a very different game as well. Dreamcast version is different than the PS1 game, which is a completely different game. A different developer as well.
I will give it a go at some point. Maybe if I see a copy or on eBay or in the wild.
Well, I'm going to suggest that when we're all able to meet up, we should just take it in turns to do a 24-hour Le Mans drive, and that's what we're going to do.
Did the Dreamcast version have the Dandy Warhol's Bohemian Like You in the intro? Because that's the most like 2000 intro ever.
I don't remember.
So 2000, the song. It's just magnificent.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're going from one racing game to another with Rich.
Yes.
Your choice. Let us know what it is.
It's actually the second Yu Suzuki game of the evening. It is F355 Challenge.
Interesting. What made you choose this one?
This is probably the only game I know of in existence that's almost like a Trojan horse of a game. It sells itself. It looks every bit like your traditional Sega arcade racing game, from the menus to the cheesy 80s butt rock to the really overbearing announcer and checkpoint timers. But it is one of the most devastatingly realistic, unforgiving racing games I've ever played. And I mean, this is around the time I think that we obviously were enjoying the likes of Gran Turismo, and people used to talk about how that game in some ways felt kind of sterile and it was too realistic and it was never really like fun. I never subscribed to the argument. I always found Gran Turismo fun. But this game is just, it sells itself like it's just going to be a walk in the park, and you're going to be going sideways around corners and trying to get to the checkpoint. But it is unforgivable. I maybe it speaks more for me. I'm sure there are people out there that play it a lot better than I, but I was very much getting into simulation races around this time, and I spoke earlier about that real like racing game renaissance with the PlayStation, when I was really getting into the Toka series and the Colin McRae's and you name it. And this game came around a good couple of years later and just floored me. It looks magnificent. It's incredibly stripped down. There's only one car in the whole game. All the other opponents on track all drive the same car. Spoiler, it's the F355. And it's all about basically what's under the hood. It's not about style. It's not about choice and variety. It's about just nailing the handling of this one car and getting it just so right. And yeah, it just blew me away. I mean, I had a friend at the time who didn't have a Dreamcast, who was heavily into simulation games. He was quite snobby in a way of some of the lesser realistic titles out there. And I remember he came around my house, picked up the Dreamcast controller and was just floored by it. Like, he just couldn't believe how realistic at the time it was. And this is around the time that we weren't getting driving licenses, but he was a real car freak and he bought a Dreamcast off the back of this game. So Shenmue might not have done the job for many people, but I know 355 done the job for my one friend. And it's a game I still enjoy today. It's not fun, but it's so hard to put. It's not a game that you sit there with a smile on your face. It is frustrating. The AI and the rubber banding in it is just like horrifying at times. Like, you make one little mistake, you clip a wall, you brake too hard into a corner, they will just basically, cars will just go past you and you'll have to be fighting from the back of the pack. Yeah, I still feel like it's in some ways the most realistic depiction of a car in a game. And I know we are sport for choice now with simulation games. Like you've got your Assetto Corsas, you've got your, what's the other one? I forget, Project Cars. That's it. Yeah. That's the one. Yeah. At the time, I found this game quite revolutionary. It really felt like that was the racer on the Dreamcast. I mean, there's a real good pedigree of racers on the console. You had all your arcade titles like your Sega Rallies and your Daytonas. You had Le Mans, but this felt like the real killer app simulation. And this is at a time as well where we're being sport for choice with a lot of these like arcade perfect ports to the Dreamcast, but this one felt kind of different because it didn't, even though it was born out of the arcade, it didn't just scream arcade racing game. It felt like it could be the Dreamcast Gran Turismo. It didn't have a massive selection of tracks, and yes, again, it only had one car, but if you were into realism, then there was nothing better out there. I remember having a really good memory actually of this game only probably about 10 years ago. I remember discovering it in a bowling alley in Whitstable in Kent, and just, it had the 3 screens, everything, the full setup. And it's the only time I've actually played it in the arcade and absolutely loved it. So it's, to me, I think it's not my favorite racing game on the Dreamcast. I still would say Hydro Thunder. But in terms of your traditional real world realistic simulation, there's nothing better out there. And I'd say across that generation and probably the generation after that, still the best simulation racing game on any console, I think, personally. Yeah, it's just really a fantastic game, and the soundtrack's hilarious. And there's actually quite a bit of connective tissue between this and Shenmue as well. There's one song that plays when Ryo's riding the motorbike to Yokosuka Harbor. I think it's called Scarletta, I think. It's a real like butt rock kind of like Van Hagar piece of music, and it's glorious. And it only really dawned on me when I played Shenmue the year before last that it was the same piece of music. And yeah, it put a big smile on my face. So it's got Yu Suzuki all over it, definitely, and it's fantastic.
I've not really played this game very much because I think I just got put off by the challenge of it, the fact that it's notoriously difficult. But I feel like I should go back and give it a fair shake because you think of it so highly. Mike, are you a fan of this game?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a really challenging game. It's a game which is definitely not something you're going to master in a few days. You have to keep on going back to it. But if you do that, and if you play it like that, and you really sort of try and learn the intricacies of it, it's a fantastic game. It looks absolutely stunning. I mean, the game was as good looking as some PS2 games well into the PS2's life. Just a really, really good game. But it is properly hard. It's probably the only serious sim racer we had on Dreamcast, isn't it? And it's punishing, but really good. And once you actually do start knowing exactly what to do, and once you actually start learning how to do things correctly, then the game becomes more entertaining, and it also really rewarding. I mean, there's very few experiences on the Dreamcast, a console about arcade games, that is as rewarding as this.
Lewis, I mean, not a racing game fan. Is this one that you did play, or is this one that you've not played like me?
I do own this game. I think I may have got it with my Dreamcast, so it's been sat unplayed for quite a long time. Actually, I may have played it briefly. I don't remember it very well, if I have. But obviously, I've always been meaning to play it just due to the relation with Yu Suzuki. I know it's not a similar game, but I love a lot of Yu Suzuki's games. I really like the vision he has. And obviously, I absolutely adore Outrun 2. So I was thinking like, it can't be too dissimilar. Cars, but I will give it a try at one point. But one thing's actually, because Rich was mentioning the arcade machine, I don't know if this was all of them, but I saw one at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, may or may not still be there, but they have a VMU slot, so presumably you could save your high score to it. but the one at the Pleasure Beach has the VMU slot bolted over, which I don't get, because it's like, what are they? I don't know. Like, what are they trying to do? I reckon they were just like PlayStation fans, and they're like, you're not having any fun. Bang, bolted it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I've not played it, but we'll do at some point.
Cool. Steve, is this one you played?
No. Rich always talks so beautifully about racing games, and I'm so unfamiliar with the nuances of playing racing games that it's all completely lost on me, which feels like such a shame. Yeah, no, sadly, I haven't played this one.
All right, well, that just leaves us with the task of rating it. Mike?
Ooh, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I'm going to say game, but only because of the fact that I don't think it's had a massive impact necessarily on racing games since. It's just a fantastic game.
Rich?
Even though it's my pick, I'm still going to say a very, very strong game. I still think if you reserve Game Changer for the likes of a Gran Turismo, you can't say this game had a real knock-on effect. I feel like it was the first time I remember having all loads of driver assists and driver aids in a racing game. I might be wrong. There might be something before that where you could turn ABS and traction control on or off. I might be wrong. But yeah, that to me seemed revolutionary at the time, and it was a godsend as well, because I was shit. Yeah, I'd still say a real strong game, nothing more. But...
Okay, all right, Lewis.
Yeah, it's a game. I'm gonna, because it's Yu Suzuki, I can only imagine it's a very strong game, because he is the man with the good games. So yeah, it's a game.
A game. I will agree and say that it is a game. Steve.
Well, it certainly sounds like a game, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Let's go with that, shall we?
Let's go with that. Alrighty. Rich, what is your honourable mention?
Oh, it's going to have to be Virtua Tennis. I mean, what more can be said about Virtua Tennis? It almost plays like a perfect game. I mean, admittedly, I'd say the Virtua Tennis 2 is superior. But at the time, this is obviously the first time I played it. I feel like other than maybe Anna Kournikova's Smash Court Tennis on the PlayStation, this was the first time I remember playing a tennis game, and I was just head over heels in love with it. It just plays perfect. You don't have to be a sports fan, and God forbid you don't have to be a tennis fan, and I was neither really at the time, but it's perfect. Like whether you're playing against the CPU or a friend, it's Pong with very, very, very pretty graphics. Yep. Controls are nice and tight. It's precise. There's lots of intricacies to how you return the ball. It just plays right. It's there's not much detail you can go into with it. It's just that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. It's just the simplicity and how well it's made, and it's just bloody addictive as well. You can just put hours into this game, one-on-one with a friend, and not even realize it's an absolutely fantastic game.
Yeah, very, very fun. Everybody else agree with that? It's a enjoyable game.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. It feels perfect because everything that it sets out to do, it completely nails, and it doesn't set out to do that much beyond being a good tennis game, but it absolutely nails that. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. All right. For the sake of time, I was going to talk about a couple of games, but I'm not going to. But I'm going to point out there were a lot of bloody amazing games this year that we haven't even looked at. I mean, I think that quite often in these kind of podcasts or YouTube videos or whatever talking about Dreamcast games, the games I'm about to mention are probably the ones that would get mentioned more often, and those are games like Jet Set Radio, Space Channel 5, Crazy Taxi, Samba de Amigo, Choo Choo Rocket, Metropolis Street Racer. Big games that came out in the year 2000. Huge games. But we've not really touched them, and I think it's quite nice that we've touched on very good games that aren't those ones that would normally get mentioned, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice. I was going to bring up Jet Set Radio and Space Channel 5, but I shan't. And instead, we're going to move on to a quiz. Get your quiz brains ready, because this is going to be interesting. I'm splitting up into teams again. So it is Dreamcast Junkyard versus Dreamcast Years. So Mike and Lewis, you're on a team.
Yeah.
Steve and Rich, you're on a team. Steve and Rich won the last quiz, so therefore have a point.
It was a team effort. Please, Rich. Please.
It's always a team effort. But the anagram thing, it didn't go down quite that well with certain people. So I am going to try something a little bit different. But before we do, I do have an anagram for you just to see if you can get it. This isn't part of the quiz. There's no score for this. But the anagram that I've got for you is Maltese skirt. Maltese skirt. This is a 2000 game for the Dreamcast. Maltese skirt. What game is that? Any guesses?
That is Maltese skirt. Maltese skirt.
Give up?
No.
No.
Never.
Maltese. I'm trying to think what Maltese skirt would be.
That's all like hammer on my keyboard.
I'm sticking it in a machine to tell me the answer.
I mean, I can tell you the answer. So,
I wouldn't have got this anyway. I don't know what that is.
Jeez.
I'm going to have to put you out your misery, aren't I?
No, I don't know.
It's Time Stalkers.
Oh, so I wouldn't have got that.
Oh, yeah.
Time Stalkers.
It seems so
Why I'm
obvious
not
when you have the
doing-
answer, doesn't it?
I think K was the letter that was like giving me the most hang-ups. I was like, what game has the letter K in the title?
There you go. This is why we're not doing anagrams this time round.
I had MDK2, but I wasn't right. So
No. So this time I am shamelessly stealing a format from IGN, and that is the IMDB keyword countdown. So for those who don't know, basically IMDB, Internet Movie Database, they have keywords for the story of movies and games. So you can go into IMDB, type in the name of a game, and it'll give you a bunch of keywords that people have put in to describe the movie or game, whatever it is. So what I'm going to do, and what the keyword countdown does, is I'm going to give you 10 keywords from 3 different games, and you have to try and guess what games they are. If you guess the game on the first keyword I give you, I'll give your team 10 points. If you guess it on the last keyword, then I'll only give you 1 point. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So like with each keyword is 1 less point. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And hopefully as we go along as well, it should become clearer what the game is, so it gets a bit easier as we go down. Okay. Each team will get 1 guess per keyword, so we're not kind of just throwing wild things out there. So guess wisely. Are we ready?
Yes.
Ready.
Okay. So the first keyword, single player.
Oh wow.
Shenmue.
It's got to be, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it's not. Dreamcast Years team? Guess? Any guess?
Ooh.
You can pass if you can't think of anything.
Urban Chaos. There you go.
No, it's not Urban Chaos.
Okay, fair enough.
Second keyword, explosion.
Expendable, Millennium Soldier.
That was a 1999 game.
Of course it was.
These are 2000 games, remember?
Yeah. That was launch, wasn't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
Explosion. What do you think, Gliss?
Did something like Confidential Mission come out this year?
I think it was possibly this year.
That's 2000, yeah.
There you guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Confidential
no,
Mission.
It's not right.
Okay.
No. Next keyword, fist fight.
Ooh.
Jeez.
You can pass if you're not sure. We'll move on to the next
I'm going to
keyword.
have a guess. Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
No.
Oh.
I suppose that's
DCY?
not single player. No.
No, that's not, is it?
That's Rich.
Jeez.
You can pass if you're not sure.
I don't want to. No, pass. Yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't
Next
say.
keyword, mafia.
Mafia.
Shit.
Is there a Mafia game on a Dreamcast? That's interesting.
How?
Mafia.
No guesses?
What year did Urban Chaos? Has that got Mafia in it? I don't know.
I don't think
So
so.
has already been guessed.
Can't remember.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of a single player game as well, isn't it? Nomad Soul?
Nope. Any guesses from the DCY team?
Oh,
Or shall I
jeez.
move on?
What's the opposite of having an answer?
Not having an answer. Shall I move on?
Go on.
Next one then. Police.
Is that Urban Chaos? No, sorry.
No.
Grand Theft Auto.
Damn. Yeah, that's a point.
But I don't know which one. Which one came out in 2000 on the Dreamcast?
Two, I think, wasn't it?
2.
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 2.
I think I know the answer, but it's not that.
Okay.
Damn.
It was your guess Grand Theft Auto 2?
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
good.
man.
Ah,
Better.
Yeah, no, it's obvious. It's
Correct.
obvious now. Damn. That's annoyed me.
See, I've never
There you
played Grand Theft Auto 2, but I kind of like was unsure just then because like I know it has some kind of like retro future kind of vibe. So
It's a bit
Yeah.
Batman the animated series. It's interesting.
So that's 5 points. And just so you know, the rest of the keywords were tough guy, second part, hit and run, flamethrower, and then the last one was car theft, which I'm guessing you would have all got at that point. All right, that's 5 points then for Dreamcast Junkyard. Let's move on to the next game. Ready for it?
Yep.
Mhm.
All right, first keyword, multi-genre.
Shenmue.
Nomad Soul. Oh,
Sports Jam. There you go.
So we've got Shenmue and Sports Jam, and only one guess per team.
Yeah.
So no, neither of those. Next keyword, fighting game.
Nomad
How
Soul.
was
You both said one at the same time. Which are you going with?
Nomad Soul?
Correct. It is the Nomad Soul.
Oh, Jesus.
bloody hell.
Seriously.
That is 9 points,
Oh,
which does
man.
mean that you cannot win now at DCY.
Wow.
But just to go down, so it was multi-genre fighting game. Then it would have been Saving the World, Police, Computer, High Tech, Celebrity Cameo, Music Shop, Cyberpunk, and the last one was Body Swap.
Cool.
David Bowie, no way.
Yeah.
Can I ask one question? This is like my own personal quiz for everyone. Is Nomad Soul shocking or is it good? I just need a yes or no.
Shocking.
How can you say yes or no to shocking or
Oh,
good?
is it shocking or good?
Pretty bad.
It was good. I liked it.
Get a PC version on Good Old Games. Really good.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. All right. Well, let's do the third one just because we can, and see what we can come up with. Congratulations, by the way, DCJY team.
Yeah, grats.
Damn.
You've won. You've drawn level. So it's one apiece now over the 2 episodes. All right, let's try the third one. Let's see if you can guess one. And the first keyword is bloodshed.
Oh, what's that one? What's that one game now? Oh, God, it's gone. It's gone.
Come on, Rich. You're letting us down,
One
man.
with a sword in it. Begins with B. It's gone.
Blood of the Sword of the Berserk.
That's
Yeah.
the one.
Yeah.
That's the game. Good
Really?
guess.
Wow.
First
Okay,
one.
me.
Blimey.
Sword of the Berserk. Guts
I think that was
Rage.
the first and second question. It would have been different. So.
But technically, we
That's true.
tie on that one because we helped each
Yeah,
other
We
out.
did, yeah. Okay.
That is true.
Fair enough.
That is the like the perfect thing to finish on. How we like teamed up.
Exactly.
It is.
Yeah.
Very true. This is a difficult one as well, I think. So the keywords were bloodshed, darkness, destiny, visual impairment, crossbow, mission, demon, fairy, swordsman, and then based on a manga.
Oh yeah, I was waiting for based on anime or manga.
Yeah, well, there we go. So, I mean, I did have a tiebreaker as well. I don't know why, but it was another anagram, and I'm just going to finish us off with that, and because I think it's quite a funny anagram. And the tiebreaker was nap tingler. Nap tingler. Any guesses?
Yeah.
Nap Tingler.
No. Can't think.
No.
No.
All right. The answer to that is Planet Ring. Planet Ring.
Okay, yeah.
Nap Tingler Planet Ring. There you go. Congratulations again, Dreamcast Junkyard team winners. We've got 2 more of these quizzes to go. I'm wondering now whether it's going to be a tie at the end or if somebody's going to pull away into the lead. We'll find out. We will find out.
I mean, I don't know if you'll be doing something different for the next one, but I quite liked that keywords quiz.
I
Very
did
clever.
too. Yeah.
Pretty good. I think it might be a keeper. Maybe an anagram for the tiebreaker again, just so we can use those for something. Cool. All right, so that's it. We've covered the year 2000. I mean, like I said, there are tons of games we could talk about, and we could talk about them at length. I think if people would like to talk about them, pop onto our Discord, which you can find by going to the dreamcastjunkyard.co.uk and come and tell us all about your favourite 2000 games for the Dreamcast. Would love to hear about it. And of course, check out the website for all of the amazing articles, such as Mike's article about flags in Dreamcast games. And of course, Lewis's most recent article about Laura from D2 it was a fashion magazine, right? Pretty much.
Yep.
That's what it was. Which is very interesting. And keep an eye out, of course, as well for Mike's A to Z. When can we expect to see more of that, Mike?
That should be out on about May the 10th-ish, so early May, mid-May.
Ooh. Anything else? Where are we looking for this? Do you know where we're going to be backing this yet?
So it's going to be the first print run will be done and be purchasable straight away in early May, and then after that it'll just be a series of prints. It's all very low key.
Oh, very cool, very nice. I will be there for that for sure. I'm sure many people will be too. Lewis and Mike, where can we find you online?
You can find me at LewisJFC on Twitter and also on the Junkyard Twitter handle, which Andrew will plug in a second.
Indeed. Mike?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at space_turnip.
Lovely. And yes, you can find Mike and Lewis, who run our Twitter at the DC Junkyard. And a fine job they do of it too. And as I said, of course, you can find everything about the Dreamcast Junkyard, including this very podcast, by going to thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. You can also find stuff about Dreamcast Years by going to dreamcastyears.co.uk, where we have every episode of our podcast available there for you to listen to, as well as all good podcatchers as well. You can also find out more information about the books, Dreamcast Year 1 and Dreamcast Year 2, and you can even buy a digital copy of Dreamcast Year 1 by going to the site and going to the book section, and it takes you to a link to buy the digital copies. That is available whenever you'd like, if you want to read that. And and you can also listen to Dreamcast Years every Monday at 8 p.m. GMT/BST, whichever hour we're in when it's airing, on Radio Sega. So if you go over to radiosega.net, you can listen to us there every Monday at 8 p.m. British time, whatever your local time is comparable to that. And you can find us on Twitter at Dreamcast Years. Steve, where can we find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at SteveJack, although currently on a little hiatus, but that's where I am normally.
Fair enough. And Rich, you have a new handle, so let's repeat that for everybody.
I do.
What is your new
Again,
handle?
I'm just diversifying my my reach. I'm just going to a broader audience. You can find me on Twitter at The Bitten Hero.
There you go. You can find me at Oddment84. So please do come say hi. And as I say, if you want to chat to a lot of us, come over to the Discord. That is, you can find that at the dreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. And that's kind of popping off at the moment. There's all sorts going on in the Discord, isn't there? It's quite busy.
Yeah, it seems to be a weird home that some translators have found. That for some reason that's where they've decided to talk about their translations. So we're not complaining. If you're a translator, get in the Discord and let's get more translations. Yep.
Absolutely. Sega Gaga, please. That would be great. And Eldorado Gate, I'm requesting that right now. Somebody please translate that epic RPG that'll take you.
There is a translation being worked on, Andrew.
Yep.
Yeah, for volume 1. So maybe they'll translate it and then you'll just wonder what all other volumes have to offer, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I do believe there may be a Sega Gaga translation in the works, but I can't remember who may be working on it. So like an actual patch for it. So yeah, well, we'll wait and see. Yeah, it seems like there's a big community right now of people, doing translation. So it seems like a lot of them as well are like joining up together and sort of collaborating. So it's really cool to see that.
Amazing. That's awesome. It makes me happy because I've wanted a lot of these translations for ages and ages. So it's nice that we're getting so many of them at the moment. I think that's it. I think we're done for the year 2000. So join us when we come back at some point in the future to talk all about the year 2001. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, take care and keep dreaming. See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Lovely.
I'm never sure if I should say bye at the end.
Yeah.
No,
Why not? It's fun.
I always edit it out usually.
Fine.
Sometimes it works, but then sometimes there's like this like awkward trail off, like, yeah, bye.
Bye. Bye.
Yeah.